is that I'm a teacher librarian of 20 years. And I was actually submitting books back when I was teaching, but it just takes up a lot of time. And so I couldn't really like get this dream to happen while I was teaching because teaching takes a lot of energy and work. And so I made the decision to retire early after 20 years. And that gave me the time to actually research and figure out how to go about getting published. And I used all my skills as a librarian to figure that all out. And then my dream came true. And now I am working with two different presses, the Rowan-Rudder Press and Muddy Boots Books.
You know, it's interesting. We've actually had several of the authors that we've talked to that this is their second career, that it was something they always wanted to do and didn't have time for until they retired or their circumstances changed. So, well, that's great for us that you were able to do that. So you mentioned you were an English teacher, you're a media specialist. How did your background really prepare you for writing children's books? How do those careers relate to each other?
Well, they definitely helped me figure things out a little bit more because the research part was handy because you can't just jump in and say, I'm going to write this book and publish it. There's a lot of research to be done about the process, and I've had a lot of help from I researched and found out about SCBWI, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, joined them, and they were very helpful with a lot of the information they gave. And then it influenced the way I went about writing my books because I wanted my books to have a message and then a good conversation that kids could have about the book, and then also have educational activities to do following. So back when I was an elementary librarian, I spent hours preparing lessons that dealt with other people's books. And I thought, wow, if I could do that for my books that are behind me, I would make educators' life a little bit easier. So the educational background definitely did influence a lot of that. Oh, and I have to mention, this is The Magician. Makerspace is really popular right now in schools. And so I have a magic makerspace activity that I do, a workshop, and teach kids how to do magic. So a lot of my educational background does come forth, and with the Book of Untold Stories, it's all about writing. So yes, my educational background definitely had a hand in getting me here and influencing me about how I went about doing it.
I love that. And I should mention that you do have the extension activities are available on your website, right?
Yes.
And I love the magician one. I think my kids
it's
would
just my name.
Love...
What, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I was just saying the magic one. My kids would love that. That sounds really fun.
Well, at the back of that book, we have a fact page, and it shares my favorite magic books because it is kind of fun because, it's a story about a girl that wants to be a magician. But then if the kids want to try out magic, because I have my little list of my favorite magic books for kids, in it that you can get at most NLU libraries. It's just fun to see them try it too. So it's a lot of fun to do in a workshop setting for me.
That's great. And so why don't you go ahead and tell us about your most recent book? You just mentioned it, and how it encourages kids to use their imagination.
So the Book of Untold Stories, 14 Prompts to Spark the Imagination. I wrote it because I saw something happening in my elementary library. And kids are all different. You have the athletic kids, you have the artistic kids, you have the musical kids. And creative writing isn't something, they might touch on, but a lot of it's about writing just in general. But the creative writing part, there's not a lot of opportunities to do that. So in the library, I had some kids that just love to write their own stories. So that's where this book came from, is I knew I wanted to, inspire and encourage kids to write their own stories. And I was very fortunate that Roadrunner Press, was like, I like this book, let's do it. And she paired me with Thomas Hilly, who did all the illustrations, because it's illustrative prompts and then like information about what's in a story, the components of a story, how to go about writing. And then he brought my ideas, my open-ended illustrations to life. I mean, I couldn't have been more pleased. So I've been using it in writing workshops already, and the kids' stories are just, I just love listening to their stories because I never would come up with them. They're crazy. I'm like, I never would have come up with a story in a million years. So it's a lot of fun. And he did.
Could you give us an example? Could you give us an example of maybe some of the stories or some of the prompts?
Oh yeah. So, and in a workshop setting, they ask me a lot of times, like, what's your story? And I'm like, no, I won't tell you because my field of experience is different from a kid's field of experience, and our imagination is so different. So we were doing the workshop. I'm going to show you the illustration, and that's it right there. So this kid talked about how in his story that the dog was actually the leader of an alien planet, and the dog was hidden on Earth to protect this leader. And but the aliens had put him there for safety, but the aliens needed his help. So they were coming back to, get his help. And so, yeah, I never would have thought about having the dog as the leader of an alien or planet. So I was
that's wonderful.
So fun.
And I love that as a prompt. So some of them are text prompts and some are illustrations.
All 14 are illustrations, but the text part talks about like what's a plot, what are characters, what are the setting, and how they all play, have a place in the story. Sometimes they're important, sometimes they're not, and then the writing component. So in each illustration, I have suggested titles, but sometimes kids come up with their own title because it's so different than what I thought, to do.
Right.
So I just love listening to their stories. It's so fun.
So I love that.
Teacher friendly.
I also want to make sure that we get a chance to talk about the cloud artist, which is the one that a lot of people might know you by. And this is, sorry, it's not getting the whole picture in there. This is one that's a Choctaw tale and own voices. You and I had an interesting discussion about the term own voices. Maybe you could give us just a little explanation of what that is, and then tell us about this story and how it came about.
So this is a story about a little girl who can paint with the clouds, and she has to decide how she's going to use that gift. It is a tale in English with the Choctaw, in it. And my publisher is the Roadrunner Press. And so she said, well, I have a Choctaw illustrator that we should, see if she'll do the illustrations. And so Marisha Sequoia Clark did the illustrations. And a month before the book came out, we found that we were cousins. So that was just wild. So
that is so amazing.
Yeah, it is. And so when just as an aside, so when I was offered a contract with Lela and the Butterflies, with my husband is my co-author, that's with Muddy Boots, I asked Muddy Boots, hey, would you want to look at illustrator I might want to use? And she's my cousin, and she also did cloud art. So they loved her artwork, and it's totally different style. So she ended up working with me, my cousin, on two books with two different publishing houses. So that was pretty exciting. But the cloud art, and Dora Wixon is the translator, and she works at the Choctaw Nation Language Department. And so it's just, to me, it's a powerful and important book to me because it celebrates my Choctaw heritage. These are my grandparents. They both have Choctaw mothers that were on the Choctaw rolls. So I wish they'd been here to see, this all come to be. So it isn't just about a girl who can paint with the clouds. It's about history and heritage, and that's why I think own voices are important, because in the book it Marisha included illustrations in the clouds of a stickball game, the Trail of Tears. So there's references to true happenings. There was the Choctaw ceremonial dances. And then I wanted to include a character that had been in the Army in World War I, because what a lot of people don't know is that the Choctaws were code talkers in World War I. And so there's some really great articles out that about that. Yes, there's the soldier in his uniform from World War I. So it was a way to pull in history and make it a little bit more meaningful, and to me and to my family, because a lot of the characters' names are pulled from my family.
Oh, really? Oh, that's really special. And I know this was one that was really important to you.
Yes, at the end, the little girl is named Charlotte, and that is my grandmother's name.
Oh, I was wondering about that. I was almost expecting that the girl's name would be Sherri, but now I know what Charlotte, the reference is to. That's really special. And to have it translated into Choctaw, I mean, I just love all of the, like you said, that the own voices books are so important in children's literature. We do see a lot more diverse books, but a lot of them are not necessarily written by someone from that heritage. And I know for myself, you know, when I first started having kids and looking at books, that wasn't even really something I thought about looking for. But now that I'm aware of it, it really makes such a difference to really share those stories. And like you say, that you're the artist. I'm sorry, how do you say your name? Is it Marisha?
Marisha. Mm-hmm.
Marisha, that she's able to bring in those things that another artist probably wouldn't have even thought of, you know, or that have to.
Yeah, she did a lot of research too. And in Lela and the Butterflies, you know, I don't really, even though we're both, you know, from the Choctaw Nation, you know, the message of this book is about love of butterflies. And as I said, it was written with my husband. He's my co-author, and he's a biologist. And we wanted to write a book about the love of butterflies. But even though it's not like dwelling on the Choctaw people, it has diverse characters throughout. So, you know, she actually looks to me a lot like Marisha does. So I think it's important to have own voices and multicultural books. Like all of my books are multicultural, because I want any child to pick up a book and be able to see at least one or two characters that might look like them. I grew up in Texas, and so, you know, it's important for me to bring more books. Like, I don't know if you saw my Instagram, but I've been sharing, you know, multicultural and own voices books a lot. And, you know, I just want my former students to see themselves in books and their children. And I think in today's world, it's happening more. And that to me is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that must be interesting for you with your background in schools, how you've seen things change, and you've seen what a difference it makes to kids when they are able to see themselves in books.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you're in even if you're in a place that doesn't have a big multicultural community, I think it's important for all of us to come together and learn to appreciate and respect other cultures. But if you're in a place that doesn't have that, how can you get that unless you're reading some beautiful books by different people? You know, to me, that's a very important thing as a librarian that I did, and I see it done so well by librarians today. It's just a changing canvas that we're going through right now, and I love it. I love it.
Oh, that's wonderful. So we just have a few more minutes left, so why don't you tell us, what are you working on now? I understand you have a new book coming out next year. Is that right?
It is. Roadrunner Press, did The Cloud Artist back in 2017, The Magician, and then the Book of Untold Stories. And Muddy Boots, the first book they did, and they specialize in nature books. They did Lela and the Butterflies. And then I pitched them an idea of the 12 Days of Winter, a wildlife celebration. And so it's my take on the 12 days of Christmas, but it's all about nature, because there are kids that might not celebrate Christmas. And at schools, there's a lot of focus sometimes on Christmas. And I just thought, wow, if I could create a book that could celebrate winter through animals, I think a lot of teachers would like that. So I am ready. The book, won't be here till August, but
you're ready for it.
I use a lot of puppets in my my library, and the first character is a moose munching in the meadow, and he's ready to go with me, aren't you? Yeah. I know.
Oh yes, you can tell you're a librarian. I love it.
Yes, I still have my puppets. I drag them sometimes with me places, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was my dream career, but this has been another dream career that I wanted to do. And the neat thing is I still get to work with kids. So
yes,
that's the best part of my job is being able to be around kids in libraries and schools and do programs with them. I do.
So if somebody wants you to come and do a program at their school, how can you say your website again and how people can get in touch with you?
Most people just reach out through my website, which is my name, Sherri Maret, just sherrimaret.com. And I've been doing Zoom visits. I was booking a lot of Magic Makerspace right before the pandemic. I love doing that because the kids were so fun to be with, and watching them do the magic tricks are just, it's great fun. So I do Zoom, and then I do, in person, and just email me through my website, and I would love to come and visit.
Well, thank you so much. It was so great to have you on here. And, like I said, people reach out to her through her website. If you want to come to the school, be sure to check out her books. They're really wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us, and best wishes.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for watching, everybody.